In the quiet streets of Cebu, whispers spread like wildfire. Children began to vanish, only to be found lifeless, their bodies bearing unspeakable cruelty. Locals called it the work of the Baktin, a word that carried both fear and horror. Who was behind these killings? And why target the most innocent? Tonight, we uncover the dark truth behind the Cebu Baktin Killings, a case that continues to haunt the Philippines to this day. This is Pinoy True Crime Story. In Cebu, in the late 1990s and early 2000s, a chilling name echoed in the narrow streets and crowded barangays: Baktin. A word that usually meant piglet, but during those dark years, it carried a heavier, more sinister weight. Parents whispered it to their children like a warning, a way of saying, "Don't wander too far, or the Baktin might get you." At first, it seemed like ordinary disappearances. A child didn't come home on time, perhaps still playing outside or lingering with friends. Families thought nothing of it. Cebu was alive with children's laughter back then, the streets filled with games of tag, the sound of slippers slapping against the pavement, the sweet smell of street food wafting through the air. But then the hours turned to nights, and the nights turned to mornings, and the children still didn't return. Panic began to spread. Mothers stood by the doorsteps, clutching plates of untouched food. Fathers searched the rice fields with flashlights, calling names that never echoed back. Neighbors joined in the searches, combing riversides, abandoned lots, and dark alleys. And then, the bodies started to surface. Tiny, lifeless forms, children who had vanished days before, were discovered in sugarcane fields, by the murky edges of rivers, sometimes in empty construction sites. Their bodies bore marks of unspeakable violence. Some were strangled, others drowned. There were whispers of assault, though authorities often refused to share the gruesome details. Each discovery deepened the horror, and with every funeral, the community lost another piece of its soul. The killings weren't isolated. They began to form a pattern. All of the victims were young as 4, some no older than 12. They disappeared suddenly, often in the middle of the day, from familiar streets they had walked 100 times before. And then they would reappear, days later, lifeless and discarded, like they were nothing more than broken dolls. Fear spread quickly across Cebu. Parents no longer let their children play outside. The once vibrant sounds of laughter and street games were replaced by silence, punctuated only by the occasional cry of grieving families. Curfews were imposed. Teachers dismissed students early, urging them to walk home together. Even fiestas, once bright with color and music, dimmed under the weight of fear. People began to whisper theories. Some believed the killings were the work of a lone madman, a predator lurking in the shadows. Others thought it was a cult, offering children as sacrifice in exchange for wealth and power. Still others feared it was something more organized, a group of men preying on the most vulnerable with impunity. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain: Cebu had a monster in its midst, and no child was safe. The police were under enormous pressure. Every body found was another wound on the city, another reminder of their failure to protect the innocent. Investigators patrolled the streets, interviewed families, questioned neighbors, and rounded up suspects. But the killings did not stop. Whoever the Baktin killer was, he was careful, calculated, and terrifyingly invisible. The community began to lose trust. Some accused the police of incompetence, others suspected corruption. Whispers that maybe those in power already knew who the killer was, but were protecting him. There were stories of suspects being caught, only to be released. of witnesses silenced, too afraid to testify. And so the killings stretched on, shrouded in fear and mystery. For the children, the word Baktin became more than a monster tale told at night. It became a living horror. They knew to stay indoors. They knew not to talk to strangers. They knew to cling tightly to their parents' hands. But still, the killings continued. The predator seemed unstoppable. As years passed, the Baktin killings etched themselves into Cebu's history, becoming less of a case and more of a legend. For some, it was a reminder of police failures. For others, it was proof of the cruelty that could exist in the human heart. And for parents who lived through those years, it was a scar that never truly healed, a fear that remained long after the killings stopped. The truth behind the Baktin killings has never been fully resolved. Suspects were named, arrests were made, but no single narrative ever brought full closure. The mystery lingers like a shadow, a chilling story passed from one generation to the next. Even today, in some barangays of Cebu, parents still whisper to their children, "Stay close, don't wander. Remember the Baktin." Not as a myth, not as a fairy tale, but as a warning rooted in the real horrors of the past. For the memory of those lost children, their laughter stolen, their futures erased, will forever haunt Cebu. And so, the Baktin killings remain not just a crime story, but a cautionary tale. A reminder of innocence stolen, justice elusive, and the enduring scars left on a community that once trembled at the sound of a single word: Baktin. The Cebu Baktin killings remain one of the darkest chapters in Philippine true crime. The victims were silenced too soon, their cries forever etched in the memory of a fearful community. While justice sought to answer the questions, the shadows of doubt and horror continue to linger. Because in the end, the story of the Baktin is not just about the killings. It is about a community left scarred, and the haunting reminder that evil can lurk even in the most unexpected places. This has been Pinoy True Crime Story. Until the next case, remember, the truth is never as simple as it seems.